Coming up next on Arizona Horizon, Maricopa County Recorder Justin Heap joins us amid his dispute with the County Board of Supervisors. Also tonight, how the conflict in the Middle East could affect the supply chain and lead to higher prices for consumers. And we'll sit down with the new CEO of Desert Botanical Garden. Those stories and more next on Arizona Horizon.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Arizona PBS, members of your public television station.
Good evening and welcome to Arizona Horizon. I'm Steve Goldstein in for Ted Simons. The Maricopa County Board of Supervisors and County Recorder Justin Heap appear no closer to resolving their ongoing legal battle over who controls the county's early voting and the technology to run elections. Unless the parties can resolve the dispute on their own, a judge has until April 20th to decide the case. For his take on all of this, we welcome Maricopa County Recorder Justin Heap. Thanks for being here so much.
Thank you for having me, Steve.
So let's get your perspective on this dispute between your office and the Board of Supervisors.
Well, this dispute began before I took office, when the outgoing recorder and the previous Board of Supervisors signed an agreement that transferred a great deal of the recorder's office's staff, budget, and election duties over to the control of the board. And this took effect just weeks before I took office. So we came in with this into this dispute at that time, and for the last year we have been essentially in a conflict to try to get those duties returned to our office. And fundamentally, it comes down to, I think, a dispute between the law. My position in the court is that when the law says what it means, the board's position has been that it gets to determine what the law of Arizona means when it comes to election issues.
Okay. Now, Recorder Heap, I want you to hear from Supervisor Kate Brophy-McGee. The chair was on the program last week, and she made this remark about you.
What is important is to understand that it's political posturing on Mr. Heap's part. At the end of the day, we're focused as a board on conducting elections in which voters can participate wholeheartedly and feel very confident of the outcomes.
I suppose we could have two parts to that question I'm going to ask you. First of all, political posturing. Those are strong words.
I would respond that following the law is not political posturing. Ultimately, certain duties in elections are assigned to the recorder's office, and so we expect to be allowed to do those without the interference of the board.
So one other thing that she said, which I found interesting, is she said that there is on the surface, and maybe more than on the surface, it's a legal battle, that people who work for your office and people who work for the Board of Supervisors behind the scenes are working hard to do their job to make sure elections are set, even as at the top there is some fighting going on. Is that possible when there's a dispute like this, to have the offices say, we know what our job is, let's get to work, so when things are settled, which we all hope they are, then things run smoothly?
Yeah, I think so, and I think both sides would acknowledge that we need to have cooperation between both our parts. Even if all of the recorder's duties are returned immediately to his office, still we need to cooperate because the early voting locations eventually become the day of elections, and we really do need to work together if we're going to have a smooth election process.
So I found this an interesting development yesterday, which may or may not affect any of the legal outcomes. Superior Court Judge Scott Blaney referred to shenanigans and gamesmanship on the part of the board related to some subpoenas and testimony you gave to them that was not actually in the court. How significant is that ruling to you?
Well, I think it is important. The board, since the 18th, the board has taken a much more conciliatory turn. They've at least publicly stated that they believe early voting needs to return, that they intend to return staff. I'm grateful to see those, but we also need to remember that just 3 weeks ago, they were subpoenaing and threatening my staff, and they were bringing me in to testify under the threat that they would attempt to remove me from office. I think it is important that the court sort of resoundingly rejected that attempt to use those sort of tactics to try to interfere in the judicial proceeding that's ongoing, and we do expect a ruling on that soon.
So let's get to the core of part of the dispute, at least as we get going, in addition to the bigger plan you mentioned. What is your plan for early voting and expanding vote center locations? Because I know that there was a statement put out by Supervisor Lesko and Supervisor Brophy-McGee, and there was some disagreement between all of you on that as well. Mm-hmm.
Well, I think early voting is it's something that we need to have a robust system to make that. That is what the voters expect, and I intend to keep that going. Now, where the source of the conflict now is, while the board has publicly stated that that under the law, it is the recorder's statutory duty to do that. So far, they have not transferred any of the budget, staff, or things necessary to actually make that happen. But my team has dove into to building out the system, and we do want to increase. From what I've seen, we seem to use the same early voting locations cycle after cycle, and that seems to be driven more by convenience for the election officials than what actually serves the voters across the valley. So we are working now to have more early voting sites in cities and jurisdictions that have not had early voting in prior elections. So.
Were you concerned that in that case, that was a case of maybe more conservative districts were being left out?
I don't know that it was a partisan division. It was more just a look at the map, and we had certain cities like Tempe that had a population of 180,000, but 4 to 6 voting locations within 8 miles. But then a district like Mesa, which has 500,000 people, and only 1 voting location. So we didn't think that the sites that the board had chosen initially really were sufficient. So we are working to put sites in locations that haven't had them. So and some of those are not necessarily blue areas. We're moving to put one in South Phoenix, in Ahwatukee, in Levine, that have not had voting locations in the past. So I think we want to just give voters all across the valley an equal opportunity to vote in person if that's how they choose to vote.
Okay. Earlier in the legislative session, lawmakers moved to push up Arizona's primary into July, and the governor signed it. Does that make it even more challenging for your office at this point as this dispute goes on to make sure that this primary is ready to go, because you've lost at least a few weeks there?
Yeah, it does move up a lot of the deadlines we have to get things into effect. It also, in terms of finding early voting, even if we have a site that has done it now, we have to give them a new schedule that maybe they've never used before. So it does give some challenges, but I don't think it's going to prevent us from being able to find working sites and functioning.
We've got about a minute or so left,
Sure.
But go as long as you want on this. I think a lot of people who are watching and who are not necessarily privy to what the county recorder's dealings are with the Board of Supervisors, they want to know whether they're going to be able to vote and whether the election is going to go smoothly, safely, without any quote-unquote shenanigans. Are you confident that's going to happen?
I'm very confident. I mean, my team is definitely working incredibly diligently to make sure that we have not just an effective plan for early voting, but even that we expand it and allow more people that option. With or without the board's support, we will make sure that we deliver that for the voters.
And finally, this might fall into the category of never try to predict what judges are going to do. Sure. Are you optimistic that something before April 20th can get done?
I'm very optimistic, and I don't want to speak for them, but I think the board also believes they're going to lose on this one because they have taken a much more conciliatory tone now after the final hearing on that, at least publicly saying, hey, we recognize things need to go back to the recorder. So I think that we're in very good shape, and I look forward to the court's ruling.
Okay. Maricopa County Recorder Justin Heap, thanks for being here.
Thank you so much.
Oh, it's beautiful. It's powerful.
On Finding Your Roots, Alanis Morissette.
My family would often say, can you just stay still for 1 minute?
And Sierra.
I have a greater appreciation for American history and my history.
An ancestor stunt.
Can you imagine taking a boat over those falls?
What?
And a family secret.
Your biological great-great-grandfather was white.
Oh, wow.
Tuesday night at 7 on Arizona PBS.
In this week's Ireland with Michael, join me as we step into a world where history whispers through the hills and ancient legends linger in the air. Ireland's ancient East is a land of myth and mystery. Together, we'll wander through dramatic landscapes and uncover tales of pagan kings as Ireland's ancient East is calling.
Tuesday at 11 on Arizona PBS.
Global supply chains have been under stress since the COVID-19 pandemic. And now we're looking at things developing even more so because of the war with Iran. Here with me to talk more about that is Hitendra Chaturvedi of Arizona State University. Thanks for being here. Good to have you back.
Thank you for having me.
My first opportunity to sit with you here. What have you seen so far? It's been a few weeks, and as far as supply chains go, I imagine we're already seeing some effects.
See, the biggest 800-pound gorilla is the price of oil. And that was at $70. And now it is flirting with about 120 a few days ago. that is a very, very dangerous place to be. Because if you calculate back, even at $100, our price of gas at the pump, that was at about $3.30, was already touching at about $4.15 and $4.50. And then everything that we buy gets transported on trucks that use diesel. And so about 10% of that cost is fuel cost. So if you do rough calculations, you're looking at an inflation number that can go from 2.4 all the way to about 3.5.
Now, this may not be in your exact area of expertise, but a lot of people are saying, did oil prices and gas prices have to go up so fast to respond to this? Because I think maybe people were thinking, can we at least see how this plays out? Now, of course, I don't know if people are exactly optimistic about how it's going to play out, but as far as the prices already being affected, how much does that bode ill for us going forward?
So what the market is pricing in is whether the war is going to be prolonged or not. And if you look at the Strait of Hormuz, everybody knows what the Strait of Hormuz is. Even the kids know the spelling of Hormuz now. 20% of the world's supply, which is over $500 billion worth of fuel, goes through the Strait of Hormuz. And we don't get a lot of that. Most of it goes to Asia. But we buy a lot of stuff from Asia. Yeah. Just to give you an idea, if you look at our data centers, the data centers chips are by NVIDIA, but the memory comes from South Korea. South Korea imports a lot of oil from the Gulf. Yeah. And they're having an energy crisis. That supply will get constrained. 25% of our stock market that is driven by AI companies. What do you think is going to happen there?
Yeah, not good things. We know that. So what products, specific products, I think people think back to COVID-19, they saw empty shelves. How close are we to that? Or if not empty shelves, how much more the price is going to go up for everyday goods other than
that's gas? A great question. I don't think so there'll be a shortage of goods. Okay. I think the price is going to go up. Combine that with, so I believe that even if the war stopped tomorrow, okay, it's going to take at least 2 to 3 months for this thing to stabilize. So the price, people who have paid high price for oil, they're going to pass it on to the consumers. So with certain forecasts saying that, so here's the worst case situation. If the war keeps on going and the Strait of Hormuz was shut down for, let's say, 6 months, we could be touching $150 barrel. We haven't seen that prices since the 1970s. So that's the biggest concern, and our inflation, consumer price index, can go as high as 5.5 to 6%.
So how could this impact general energy prices, not just when it comes to gas, but of course, here in the desert, we like to use our air conditioning, and it's already been 100 degrees next week. So how would that affect certain things like that, whether it's utility companies or whatnot? So the good news is that we are self-sufficient when it comes to our own energy, but that doesn't mean that we don't play with the market. If the price goes up, we have to buy. Heating will get impacted. Our groceries will get impacted. Furniture will get impacted. Fertilizer is already 25 to 30% higher for our products. The other angle people are not looking at is if you look at currencies of Eastern Asian countries, they are going down against our dollar, which means we can buy more, but it'll be difficult for them to buy our products. So our exporters are getting a double whammy. Yeah. One, the fertilizer prices are going up, and the dollar is becoming stronger. That's causing our exports to get impacted. So the best thing that can happen is we cannot prolong this war. And it looks like it is becoming more of a guerrilla warfare than anything else. Yeah. We know that the Trump administration's policy on tariffs was a controversial one. How much did that affect the supply chain, and how much could the combination of the war with Iran and tariffs affect our economy overall? A lot of studies have come out that are talking about 90% of the tariff was passed on to the consumer. And even the government is telling that a lot of those price increases were passed on to the consumer. So yes, we are seeing the impact of the tariff, and I've been saying it for the last 3 years, that tariffs are just another form of a tax. Yeah. And now with this oil impact, and with summer coming,
where the price of gasoline actually increases because in Arizona we put an additive in our fuel so that it doesn't evaporate too much. That's about 20 cents to $1 more. Combine that with this type of a price increase, buckle up.
Well, and finally, about a minute left. We don't want to be overly cynical, though it's hard not to be, or pessimistic. But in a position like this, we've talked about how many people have lost jobs. Our middle class is disappearing. How much more of a burden does this place on the consumer?
That's a very, very good question. I have a feeling that, again, given the timing, we may not escalate it too much. We may try to pull back. But we have to wait and see how the dominoes fall on the middle class. There are many, many of them that we haven't seen fall yet. So the impact we'll wait and see, even if we were to withdraw from this incursion or war tomorrow.
Okay. Hitendra, thanks for being here. Appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me.
For nearly 87 years, the Desert Botanical Garden has conserved Arizona's desert environment. The garden has home to 140 acres of desert landscape, on-site educational activities, and more. In October, they selected a new leader as their CEO. Joining us now is Chris Klein, who is president and CEO of Desert Botanical Garden. Good to see you, Chris. Thanks for being here.
My pleasure.
So, of course, the big question is, you had done a lot of other things. You succeeded in the media realm. So why take on this icon?
Because it's the Desert Botanical Garden, and it's a place that so many of us have grown up coming to. I remember coming here as a kid. I remember building life memories here, and I have friends that have had weddings there, luminarias. It's a place you come to escape the world and just experience nature, and how do you not want to be more involved in that?
So we're getting close, though not around the corner, but close to a major anniversary, the century mark for the DBG. I know you're planning way in advance. What are some things people should know about?
Yeah, so we turn 100 in 2039, which means that our second century starts in 2040. So we today are starting building out the strategic plan of where do we want this garden to be as a community resource 15 years from now. And we're calling our strategic plan the 2040 Compass. And a lot of that is how do we double down on community connection? How do we create more events? How do we elevate the desert plant displays under the kind of belief and guide that there aren't a lot of places on earth where you can see the best of the desert. And that's what I believe the garden is. And while we already do it well, there's always an opportunity to do it just a little bit better.
So I think a lot of people think about what a beautiful place it is. But as we mentioned, a lot of educational opportunities, but even more, I want to ask you about scientific opportunities there. Are you embracing the idea of saying this is such a unique place, let's do our best to actually teach people about what living in the desert is now and what it could be in the future?
Yes, and one of the biggest secrets of this garden is that we have a couple of dozen researchers that work in one of the buildings that's off the beaten path from the main trails, and they're working on things that can help make the desert more sustainable long term. So heat mitigation, water resilience, the ecosystems, and making sure that they all continue to function as we deal with more heat, especially in the summer months.
Well, it seems like a perfect place to do that. Do you think all these things can coalesce, what you've been offering for years, but also maybe make that science and all those researchers a little bit more prevalent for folks?
The great thing is they already work together. We just haven't told the story as loudly as we need to. And so I think you will see us in the weeks, months, and years ahead trying to find ways to partner more with cities, partner more with nonprofits, and partner more with the public in general so that we can incubate solutions, whether it's shade canopy or concrete mitigation, or even ways to water your plants so that they grow deeper roots, they don't blow down in a monsoon storm. And all of those things are practical life skills that just make it a little easier to live in an increasingly hot climate.
You're taking the CEO thing pretty seriously, sounds like.
Yeah, I mean, that's the job, right?
So it's going to be unseasonably hot next week. Most of us love March here, and it's usually 75 to 80 degrees. Could get over 100.
Yeah.
How are you preparing the garden for that?
Well, normally we're thinking about 75 degrees and sun. It's the reason all of us live here, and it's a great time to be in Arizona. We're having to think long and hard, not just about watering, but also accessibility. We're worried that people are going to be out in the sun in 2 o'clock and 3 o'clock and not realize that it's summertime feeling as opposed to spring feeling. So I think you will see us expanding our hours over the next few days, trying to make the garden more accessible as the sun comes up, and then staying open notably later to try to make sure that this community garden, and that's how I try to think about this place, is the escape from the heat, because none of us want to be inside our houses all day, every day for the next week. And if we're going to get outside, we got to do it early morning or late night.
Yeah. So getting close to the end here, I want to ask you about the national and international reputation of the DBG. I had a friend ask me the other day, how do they get something like Dale Chihuly to go there? I mean, just one example, but so much else. What is the DBG standing when it comes to botanical gardens across the country and around the world? Because it is such a unique place.
Yeah, we are so incredibly lucky, and I think unless you live in the space I now live in, you might not recognize that we are known as one of the top botanical gardens, not just in the country, but in the world. And the reason for that is because the type of botanical garden we are doesn't exist in a lot of places. There are very few places on Earth where you can see as many cacti and as many desert plants, and that's something to be proud of, and I think it's something that as a community we've all rallied around pretty well.
Great. Chris Klein, Desert Botanical Garden, thanks for being here. Good luck.
Thank you.
That's all for this edition of Arizona Horizon. I'm Steve Goldstein in for Ted Simons. Thanks very much for watching.
Hello, I'm Alice Ferris, and we hope you enjoyed Arizona Horizon. For more than 40 years, viewers in Arizona have relied on Ted Simons and Arizona Horizon for in-depth coverage of issues of concern to our community. As you are probably